Have you ever noticed how, in a heated argument, it's almost always the calm person who ends up on top? They don't shout. They don't rush to defend themselves. And yet, by the end, they've earned everyone's respect. Why? Because calmness is power. And the Stoics understood this better than anyone. In Stoic philosophy, true strength isn't measured by how loud you speak, but by how much control you have over your emotions. You don't need to win every debate with words. You don't need to explain yourself just to be understood. Sometimes, your silence says more about your inner power than any argument ever could. The Stoics believed in mastering the self, not the other person. They taught that you can't control what others say or do, but you can always control your response. Think about fire. The more air you give it, the more it rages. But take the air away, and it dies down on its own. Arguments are no different. Feed the fire of someone's anger, and it grows. Withdraw your reaction, and suddenly, you're the one in command. This is what the Stoics called strategic silence. Choosing not to react emotionally, because you know that your dignity, your clarity, and your peace of mind are worth more. This isn't weakness, this is real power. Power that doesn't shout. Power that doesn't chase approval. Power rooted in wisdom and restraint. In this video, we're going to explore 8 Stoic techniques to win arguments without losing yourself. Watch until the end, because the final technique might change not just how you argue, but how you live. Let's begin. 1. Remain calm while others lose themselves. The first method may seem simple, yet it's incredibly effective. Remain calm while the other person loses their temper. In most arguments, our natural urge is to jump in, to defend, to prove ourselves right. That's when everything starts to fall apart. Voices rise. Emotions flare. It turns into a shouting match. But through the lens of Stoicism, the real defeat lies in losing control of your emotions. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. No matter how angry or loud the other person becomes, your response is always in your hands. And if you can stay composed while they spiral, you've already taken the upper hand. Imagine this. They're shouting. They're pointing fingers. They're trying to pull you into chaos. But you're listening, calm, quiet, grounded. You don't snap back. You don't need to raise your voice to match theirs. That silence, it unsettles them. Why? Because they expect you to react with fire. But your calmness disrupts the pattern. They're no longer in control of the tone. You are. Let me share a quick story. My friend James once faced a moment like this at work. In a team meeting, a colleague suddenly lashed out at him, called him lazy, useless, even mocked him publicly. The room was tense. But James didn't flinch. He stood still, completely composed, letting the storm pass. When the shouting ended, James looked up and spoke, gently, without a hint of anger. Thanks for your opinion. I'd just like to clarify a few points. In just a few thoughtful sentences, he calmly dismantled the attack. He used logic instead of emotion. No shouting, no blaming, just truth. Afterward, team members praised his calmness. Even the boss took notice. That's the strength of Stoic control. It's not about weakness. It's about self-mastery. When you let someone's anger pull you in, you give up your power. But when you stay rooted and quiet, you stay in command. Here's how you can practice this. Pause before speaking. When emotions rise, take a breath. Let the first wave pass before you respond. Keep your voice steady. Let them raise theirs. You keep yours even lower. Calmness isn't surrender, it's strength. Hold your posture. Your expression, your body language, all should reflect confidence and self-respect. Because in the end, it's not the loudest voice that wins an argument. It's the one that remains calm and controlled. 2. Ask smart questions instead of defending yourself. When you're under verbal attack, the instinct is to explain, to defend your choices, justify your behavior, and clear up misunderstandings. But here's the catch. Explaining puts you on the back foot. It hands over control of the conversation. So what's a better move? Don't explain, question. And not just any questions, sharp, thought-provoking ones. 1. Redirect the focus with a calm question. Rather than reacting emotionally or justifying yourself, redirect the pressure with a question. This not only diffuses tension, it forces the other person to clarify their stance. Stoic wisdom teaches, the calmer the mind, the stronger the person. Marcus Aurelius. If someone says, that won't work, avoid saying, it will because. Instead, respond, what part do you believe won't work? And if their answer is vague, press deeper. How is this different from what we successfully tried last time? Your goal isn't to argue. It's to lead them to realize their logic doesn't hold up. This is exactly what my friend Daniel did. In a team meeting, someone said his plan was unrealistic. He didn't flinch. He simply asked, which part seems unrealistic to you? The critic hesitated, mentioning a small detail. Daniel followed up. Interesting. How is that different from our previous project that worked out great? Silence. Daniel didn't argue. He took control with questions. 2. The one who asks questions leads the talk. To master this technique, don't react. Pause and observe. Ask thoughtful, unexpected questions. And let them talk. The more they speak, the more their logic reveals its flaws. Key principle. Whoever asks the questions guides the conversation. While they scramble to defend, you stay composed and curious, and that's how you win. 3. Use silence to make them question themselves. When people get pulled into a heated argument, their first instinct is usually to talk more, explaining, defending, and countering every accusation. But from a Stoic perspective, silence can be your strongest move. No anger, no excuses, no effort to justify yourself. Most people expect pushback. They expect a reaction. But when you say nothing, they're left with a void. And that silence begins to echo in their own mind. It forces them to reflect. Did I say something out of line? Why isn't he replying? Does he know something I don't? This actually happened to my friend Alex. In a tense meeting, a coworker started attacking him. Loud, emotional, aggressive. But Alex didn't say a word. No smirks, no sighs, no interruptions, just calm observation. Eventually, the coworker began to stumble, repeating himself, getting flustered, defending things no one had questioned, until his own argument unraveled. As Epictetus once said, let silence be your goal, unless your words are of greater value. You don't need to respond to every insult. You don't need to engage in every clash. Real strength is staying composed, while others unravel in your quiet. Try this instead. When provoked, take a breath. Don't answer right away. Look at them calmly, not with aggression, just steady peace. Watch how your silence draws out their insecurity, because silence isn't a sign of weakness. It's pure, focused strength. 4. Acknowledge the truth, then steer the talk. Many people think that to win an argument, you need to oppose everything the other person says. But constantly pushing back just makes you seem defensive, and defensiveness often looks like you're covering something up. A smarter approach? Agree with what's accurate, even if it's just a part of their point, and then guide the conversation in a better direction. Phrases like, that's a fair observation, or, I understand where you're coming from, don't signal defeat. They actually catch the other person off guard. They come prepared for resistance, but a bit of agreement lowers their defenses. This aligns with the Stoic concept of tolerance. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, be tolerant with others, strict with yourself. You don't need to win every point. What's more valuable is calm control and the humility to accept truth, even if it comes from someone else. Take this situation. A coworker says, our system doesn't seem very efficient. Instead of denying it, try saying, yes, I've seen some slowdowns too. But maybe there's a way to streamline things without losing quality. What if we tried this method? That's exactly how my friend Sarah handled a disagreement in a team meeting. Someone opposed her idea, but instead of clashing, she said, you're right, we do need a smoother process. What if we blend your idea with mine? That simple shift turned a conflict into cooperation. Here's a quick guide to doing the same. 1. Find any truth, however small, in their words. 2. Acknowledge it clearly. You have a point, or I get that. 3. Then connect it to your perspective and move the discussion forward. Because once people feel heard, they're more open to hearing you. Never forget, agreeing isn't a weakness. It's a sign of emotional intelligence and strength. 5. Let them walk into their own trap. Sometimes, the wisest move in an argument is simple. Stay quiet. That's right, just listen. Give them the space to talk. And as they speak, let their own logic unravel. Why does this work? Because when someone is desperate to prove a point, they tend to talk too much. In their eagerness, they start revealing cracks in their reasoning. They talk themselves into a corner without even realizing it. The Stoic philosopher Zeno once said, "It is better to slip with the feet than with the tongue." A clumsy step can be forgotten, but a careless word, that sticks. And when their words start contradicting each other, that's your moment. Just like it happened to my friend. Eric had a business idea, but one of his friends tried to shut it down, saying, "It won't work. The market is too small." Eric didn't argue. He stayed calm and asked, "What makes you say the market is too small?" The friend responded, "Well, there's already too much competition." That's when Eric gently pointed out, "Wait, if the market is small, how can it be full of competitors? Aren't those two things opposite?" Silence. His friend had just caught himself in a contradiction. No argument needed. No raised voice. Just logic and a calm mind. Everyone saw the flaw. Eric didn't win by debating. He won by letting the other person expose their own weak reasoning. How can you use this? 1. Hold back. Don't interrupt too quickly. Let them talk. 2. Listen carefully, not to reply, but to observe the cracks. 3. Ask guiding questions, not to attack, but to reveal. You're not out to embarrass anyone. Your aim is clarity, not conflict. Understanding, not domination. You don't have to speak much. You don't have to raise your tone. You don't even have to argue. Just wait. Let them stumble over their own words. That's when you win. With calm, with reason, with stoic strength. 6. Don't get hooked by fake niceness. Stay calm and detached. In many arguments, there's often someone who knows how to push buttons just right. They might throw in sarcastic remarks, speak with a cutting tone, or raise their voice, not to prove a point, but to get under your skin. This is what we call emotional bait. And once you take that bait, once you react emotionally, you're caught. But here's a timeless lesson from the Stoics. When you don't give them your reaction, you take away their control. They're left swinging at the air while you stay steady. They burn out in their own emotions, while you stay cool, detached, and unmoved. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. You don't have to mirror their anger. You don't have to fire sarcasm back. Real strength lies in staying above their level. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine, Kevin, worked with a particularly toxic colleague. This person would constantly undermine him in meetings, throwing in passive-aggressive jabs and even yelling. But Kevin never took the bait. Whenever he was targeted with sarcasm, he calmly responded, "Thanks for the feedback. I'll keep that in mind." And then he'd go quiet again. No drama, no emotional reaction, just calm professionalism. The result? The toxic coworker only got more agitated. But slowly, the team began to see who the real problem was. They started distancing themselves from that colleague, while Kevin gained everyone's respect. That's the power of stoic detachment in action. How can you apply this? Step 1. Notice when someone is trying to bait you emotionally. This could be sarcasm, manipulative language, or unnecessary drama. Step 2. Don't react. Pause and ask yourself, does responding help me? Or is silence my strength here? Step 3. When needed, reply with calm logic, never emotion. Keep it short. Stay composed. Avoid emotional back and forths. Often, silence is your most powerful reply. It tells them you're not playing their game. You don't need to trade insults or get dragged into verbal battles. Sometimes the greatest strength is in what you refuse to respond to. You're not backing down. You're guarding your peace. And while others waste energy chasing reactions, you remain still, clear-minded, and in full control. That's how you win. Not through what you said, but through what you chose to rise above. 7. Make your point clearly, then pause. One of the most effective strategies in any argument is to present your point clearly, and then stop. Many people, when debating, feel the urge to say more. I have to explain further. I need to defend myself. I must convince them. But the reality is, if your argument is strong, there's no need to over-explain. Think of it like a sword. One precise strike is enough. There's no need to keep swinging. Talking too much only gives others more to twist or use against you. You're handing them ammunition. However, if your point is straightforward, direct, and simple, there's nothing for them to latch onto. As Epictetus wisely said, don't explain your philosophy, live it. This means you don't have to force your ideas on others. Instead, demonstrate them through your words, demeanor, and confidence. Here's a story about someone I know, Jason. His manager was always dismissive of new ideas. One day, Jason proposed a new workflow system. The boss immediately responded, "What if it doesn't work? It might just waste our time." Without arguing or defending himself, Jason calmly replied, "Let's try it for 1 week. If it works, we continue. If not, we revert to the old method. No risk involved." Then he said nothing more. No extra explanations. No pleading. No pressure. The room grew quiet. The silence was powerful. Even the boss had no response, until finally, he said, "All right, let's give it a try." Jason succeeded, not because of how much he talked, but because what he said was sufficient. How can you use this approach? 1. Before speaking, be clear with yourself. What exactly do I want to say? 2. State your point, clearly and directly. Avoid unnecessary details or long explanations. Deliver it like a sharp, decisive strike. 3. Then stop. Let the silence do the work. Don't fear silence. Sometimes the pause after a strong statement speaks louder than words. Remember, those who speak less, but with impact, hold the power. While others scramble to find more arguments, you remain composed, confident that what you said was enough. Certainly, here's a rephrased version of the text, keeping the original idea intact, but with fresh wording and a motivational tone. 8. Recognize when it's time to step away from the discussion. Not every debate is worth your focus. Some talks are valuable. They aim to solve problems and build understanding. But others only drain your spirit and energy. Misunderstandings happen to everyone. Yet many arguments today don't aim to clarify or connect. They're more about proving a point, showing dominance, or trying to control the outcome. Engaging in these kinds of disputes doesn't make you victorious. It simply wastes your precious time and energy. This is where the wisdom of the Stoics guides us. A truly wise person understands when to speak up and when to step back. As Epictetus wisely said, no man can learn anything if he believes he already knows it all. In other words, if the person you're debating has already shut their mind, no explanation will reach them. You'll just be speaking into silence. So sometimes, the most intelligent choice is to release the conversation and move on. Let me share a story with you. A friend of mine, Alex, had a colleague who seemed to argue about everything. Even the simplest matters turned into conflicts. No matter how clear things were, this colleague would always find a reason to disagree. At first, Alex tried to engage. He listened, explained calmly, and tried to keep the peace. But eventually, he saw the truth. This wasn't a genuine exchange seeking understanding. It was more about feeding one person's ego. So, during one particularly intense debate, Alex calmly said, "Maybe you're right," and then got up and left the room. A quiet hush took over. His colleague was left speechless, not because he lost, but because the person he wanted to provoke had walked away. From that moment forward, Alex never felt bothered by him again. Why? Because there was nothing for the colleague to gain. No drama, no emotional reaction, no fight. So how can you tell when it's time to step back? First, ask yourself, does this argument truly matter? Is the other person willing to understand? Next, watch closely. Is this a conversation aiming for solutions or just feeding pride? If you find nothing but repeated points, distractions, and stubbornness, it's better to let it go. And always remember, your peace is far more important than winning pointless battles. You don't have to prove yourself to someone who refuses to listen. Walking away isn't a sign of weakness. It's wisdom to recognize that not every fight deserves your energy. In the end, sometimes the strongest message is the one left unspoken. The most powerful response can be silence and choosing to walk away. Now that you've learned the 8 strategies to win arguments, even without saying much, let me ask you this. Which technique resonated with you the most? Which one will you put into practice the next time you find yourself in a heated debate? Keep in mind, not every conflict deserves your involvement. Not every argument requires your response. In a world filled with noise and shouting, silence can become an unbeatable tool. When everyone is busy fighting to have their say, the person who masters the art of staying silent, listening carefully, and speaking only when necessary, that person holds true power. As the Stoics remind us, you don't need to prove yourself to everyone. Sometimes, the greatest victory lies in peaceful silence. So in every discussion, choose calmness. In every challenge, choose self-control. And in every argument, choose to walk away when it's not worth the fight. Because sometimes, the words you leave unspoken speak the loudest. If this message resonates with you, drop a comment below saying, "Silent but strong." I want to see who among you embodies the true Stoic spirit amidst the chaos. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more timeless wisdom from Stoic philosophy, helping you build a resilient mind and a peaceful life.